All right, welcome everybody to our very first or inaugural podcast of BnL Promotions. Brodie and Lukas doing a little chat with each other. No guests today, but something will be looking at getting into. We've just come off the back of the Super League Nationals last weekend, and I think the momentum seems high, doesn't it, Lukas?
Yeah, it's a great tournament actually. You see 70 players at the Commerce Club, Waikato Commerce Club down there. Over 3 days, it was pretty much pull all day. It was great.
Yeah,
But you can't really ask for more.
That's all right. It was very good, actually, and I heard some really positive feedback. So we've got a number of topics that we want to touch on over the coming months. We're looking to do a podcast most likely once every month or so. And we've got some guests lined up that are keen to join us and talk about all things pool in New Zealand and abroad. So to kick us off, we are going to talk about what we've already touched on, the Super League Nationals, the direction of Super League, and its potential expansion in way of hopefully adding more dates to the calendar over the coming next calendar year. So we'll start with the Nationals. Friday to Sunday, 3 days worth of pool. All scheduled, running like clockwork. I think the worst it got was 10 minutes out for one session that seemed to end a little bit earlier, so that 10-minute delay was sucked up and everything was back on schedule.
Well, I think that 10-minute delay was because of a 6-red shootout.
Correct.
So
yeah.
2 hours passed and then...
And I think those players participating in that 6-red shootout, one of them needed a bit of coaching as to how it worked, because it's a foreign concept for most New Zealand players, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I don't even think I've ever practiced it.
Never. No, neither. And anyone that's got any ambition to going to the World Champs or playing even in Australia, then that six red shootout is certainly something worth playing, but I know I haven't, and I found myself in a 6-red shootout.
Yeah, I was just about to touch on that as well. How did your one go?
Oh, unbelievably, it went in my favour. Heavy set, 130 odd kg. I wasn't sure whether to say that. 130 odd kgs worth of pure muscle running around the table. Not ideal. Not my thing.
Yeah, we got a few calls from the police station or all that stuff. Oh, what's going
banging.
on?
Certainly not. I've chosen pool for a couple of reasons. One of them being that the fact that it doesn't require any athleticism whatsoever. 6-red shootout. I'm like, oh no. It had some tips actually from. Ooh, can't actually remember. Someone was talking about, you go quarter ball for the break and this, that, and the other thing. And when I did it, oh God, it couldn't have split worse. It was just like dead as. I also took about 2 minutes to rack the bloody things because they keep rolling off the spot, and I was told that a tight rack is crucial. But 40 seconds I did that, 6 reds.
Yes.
It's not good. It's not good.
There's only 6 balls on the table, and
yeah, it's pretty piss poor, to be honest. So, what does that work out? 7.5 seconds per ball, something like that. So I did it in 40 something, or 40 point something, and Dean Garnett, who had stated as he let me go first because he won the toss that he practices this. I'm like, oh God, this is a goner. And he did it in 50 seconds because he missed a couple of shots. So unbelievable. I couldn't believe I'd scraped through then. I had already put my cue away in my head. So anyway, 6-red shootout did put us behind a little bit. One session, that's it. Everybody commented on loving the fact that it's scheduled and they don't have to, they're not feeling trapped into sitting around at the club and having to wait around and listen for their name to be called out over the loudspeaker, although a lot of them chose to hang around anyway, which is great. But I think it ran like clockwork in that respect.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only downside to it was that live streams could kind of have a lot of downtime because we had them the cameras set up, and you can't really switch to other cameras because we just didn't have the cameras at the time. But other than that, for the players, it's fantastic. I mean, when you're done, you know, I've got this much time. I can go, I either get a bite or go home if you don't have any games that day.
Yeah, which I did. I was able to go home, do a couple of things, come back and play my next match. It worked out really well. But at the end of the day, I did see a little bit of, well, I say moaning. I saw a few comments in regards to the fact that there was some dead air showing online with our live stream.
Yeah, I mean, you can cater it to as many people as you want, but
well, that's where I was going with that. We're trying to cater to the people at the tournament, right?
Yeah.
So, as far as not having a backup, I mean, if both those TV tables have finished early, well, not going relocating cameras just to appease an extra 15, 20 minutes worth of play on live stream. So, can't have it all.
Live streaming is still important in the fact that it gets the pool out there, but if you're disrupting players and getting in the way of stuff, I think just hold off, sort of thing.
And there was a bit of emphasis on who were playing on the TV tables as well.
Yep.
So, that the better potential matches had been selected. So, can't please everyone all the time, but we did try. But, so I think the general consensus was a successful tournament.
Yeah, definitely.
It was, everything seemed to be positive. We weren't actually running it as an association or the club. Like, this is the club hosts it, and Super League do all the organising. And I tell you what, Mike Hayes is a one-man powerhouse.
Oh,
he
definitely
comes in there. It's all scheduled so well, and I think he was saying he was only called up 3 or 4 times to come and ref some shots. So that's over 3 days worth of play. It emphasises the simplicity and the admin light way of going about it, as opposed to, let's say, Charter Club, for instance, where you need tools for reffing and you need almost a stopwatch on every probably at least 2 or 3 tables and this, that, and the other thing. From that perspective, it ran so smoothly.
Mike Hayes has spent a lot of time on obviously just making sure that things are running like clockwork on the day, making it as admin light as possible. It really does work out so well in his favour that he can just kind of kick back. Maybe it caught over a couple tables, sweet as.
Well, and the byproduct is it works out in everybody's favour because it all runs so smoothly. So anyway, overall, that tournament went, from my perspective, extremely well, and from all the feedback I've heard, extremely well. So, let's hope that is really the case, and there's no one out there moaning about this, that, the other thing.
And the final was, it's probably one of the best finals you could ask for, really.
Great final.
If you haven't already watched it, go watch it now. Otherwise, you're going to get some spoilers, and the fact that Baden just...
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic game from both players, but Baden just knuckling down in the end frame and getting that frame break and run. I mean...
Yeah, and he got out to an early lead as well. I think it was at 2 or 3-0 up, Baden was to start with, and then Adam came back, and it was
back and forth.
Everything you wanted a final to be, right? No one got a hiding. There was fight in both of them from both an attacking perspective and a safety perspective. Like, God, it was top notch. It really was. I had a comment from a friend of mine that does not play pool that happened to see me share it on my personal Facebook page, and he messaged and said, well, I wasn't expecting to sit here for 3 hours and watch pool, but that was awesome. So, that says a lot. So that was really good. So as far as Super League's concerned, their next tournament that is officially scheduled would be the North or the South Islands next year.
Yep.
There is some talk about some shuffling of positions within the Super League's committee.
Yep.
Some people looking to stand down, and they're going to be putting out expressions of interest for people that are interested in coming on board and helping continue the momentum and add to it. And I don't think anything's been set in stone officially as to where they're going to go with the direction. Personally, I'm hoping there will be an additional structure with hopefully some regional representation.
Kind of bring it around to more clubs, I guess, around New Zealand rather than just one club.
Yeah, and adding more tournaments, therefore more ability for the players to gain ranking points, similar to what has been done in the past. Yeah, that's where I'd like to see it, but that's purely my interpretation of what I think would be a good way of driving it forward, having maybe 6 regional events throughout the year as a travelling regional.
And then have the opportunity to actually play for your country in the world champions at the midway through next year sort of thing.
Yep, correct. Then a massive hurdle for any sport is funding, obviously. So that I say needs to be addressed. They need someone to come on board that knows the ins and outs of obtaining funding and that sort of thing, because that would be just a huge step in the right direction. Yeah, so it wasn't just player funded, right?
Yeah, I mean, pool's already on the back foot in the terms of funding, just with the image the sport has in terms of public image, I guess, People don't see this game as a family-friendly kind of atmosphere. They see it as drunk people in a pub getting into brawls half the time and gambling and...
Yeah, well, you could say the same about rugby, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that it happens after the sport is completed as opposed to during. That's probably a big determining factor. But yeah, it's Q Sports in general have never had an amazing public image. So anyway,
it's getting better.
I think it is getting better. But we're, I suppose, on the inside looking out and hoping that people see it well. We're not on the outside looking in, because I suppose we're a bit more involved than average Joe, right? So
totally.
What the public perception really is, that's a really hard one to gauge. But I think it has gotten better from the days of Pop Black on TV in the 70s, 80s, people drinking and smoking as they're playing. I think the professionalism side of it, especially pool anyway, has come a long way. It was always looked upon as being a more casual version of Q Sports over snooker, with dress code and whatnot. Yeah. And that standard has been upheld, especially with Charter Club.
I guess on the professional scene, you're seeing more in the way of Matchroom, what's the Ultimate Pool, WPA as well. They're all doing all these big events and stuff that are pretty class events, like they're not getting smashed on the stream anymore. They're actually fit people.
Oh goodness, yeah, the fitness side of it has come such a long way. Disheartening for myself. I'm not gonna speak for you, but yeah, well, I'm glad you agree. But yeah, just these guys are athletes.
Oh, totally.
They well and truly are athletes, and I doubt very much. Obviously, we'll never see them on a live stream of a World Championship match or a US Open or anything like that, drinking booze or smoking cigarettes, obviously. But I highly doubt many of them do it outside of that environment. They are fit as fiddles, and they take it so seriously. So that, in turn, brings a more professional look to the sport when it's not, Minnesota Fats taking his turn at the table, or
even the guys that are maybe a bit more on the chunky side, I guess they're getting fit and skinny as well. I mean,
correct.
What's his name? Mark Allen's a great example of a snooker player who's maybe a bit chunkier in the past, but he's really slimmed down in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
and the results are working for him. He's getting tournaments, and
look at Ronnie O'Sullivan. He runs for fun, right? I mean, if you'd suggested a snooker or pool player in the 70s outside of being at that table runs for fun, you'd have got absolutely laughed out of the club, mate. So there are definitely things working in the advantage side of that for the sport and the image. So anyway, moving on from that. One more thing I'd like to touch on with the Super League. There were, I think, a couple of upsets in a lot of people's minds in way of results. I've touched on this in the post that I wrote up on Q Sports Aotearoa, that of the top 16, the top 8 versus the bottom 8 effectively, because the bottom 8 had 1 life left and the top 8 had 2 lives left. The top 8 went through, and I thought that was, kind of rightfully so, right?
It is, yeah.
I don't. I feel a little bit sad for anyone that has to come up against Mia that doesn't know Mia, and I doubt there was anyone at this tournament that didn't know Mia, but she seems to not just beat people, but destroy them with a smile on her face and the most humble person you could ever meet. I think
It's a good thing I played her on the last 16, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. But yeah, she's so strong. She's so solid. I don't know. There used to be a bit of a general consensus back when I played 20 odd years ago that there weren't many female players that were particularly scary. That has certainly changed, in part to Denise's performance, Mia's performance, Jojo Coleman's performance. I know I'm missing a few names out here, but the women are getting so sharp and beating up the guys, which, great, right? But it never used to be the case so much, and it's becoming more and more popular, or more and more common, I should say. And I think that's fantastic for the sport. But that's another thing that's bringing a positive light to the sport that may have once been looked upon as dodgy, that the women are not just coming in and playing and not just competing either, but smashing these guys and experienced players as well. I think it's fantastic for the sport, and I think there needs to be a little bit more light shown for that, a bit more praise, although most of the women players wouldn't want that. But yeah, I think it's just fantastic. It is. So big ups to the female players out there that are holding it down and teaching these guys that this ain't your sport anymore. You may have dominated as a sex in the earlier days, but that's not the case anymore. So yeah, keep it going. That momentum is amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have got a few bits and pieces more to talk about. One thing I've jotted down here that might be worth mentioning is New Zealand currently has been joined by some pretty big names in the Q Sports arena. Joshua Filler being one of them, who's currently in Hamilton, I believe.
Yeah, literally practicing probably down at one of the clubs down here. And
for the World Champs. And that is something that, a couple of years ago, there wouldn't have been many people would think that would be an opportunity to go and watch, or I know people that are playing in that tournament. That is really, really cool. I will be down there next week to support a couple of local players.
There's some players there that from New Zealand that are definitely deserving of the support from the community. That it's a huge achievement to get to, I mean, the World Championship April, you know.
Yeah, well, I'll go out and say that's well done to Massey for bringing such a massive tournament to New Zealand's shores. It's actually very, very cool, and I hope that this isn't the first and only time that that's going to happen. It'd be great to think that New Zealand becomes a pretty good hosting country for that sort of caliber of player.
You're seeing the darts as well with the, what was it, Masters, New Zealand Masters, I believe it's called. I'm not a big darts player, by the way, so don't know all that much about it, but they're making a huge headway in getting darts out there and to a more regular person.
Amazing. Yeah, they've made it a party too.
Yeah.
They have, yeah.
So to get it out to with pool in New Zealand with bringing something here that is on a world stage with the world class players and stuff, it's huge. It really is.
Yeah, and I really hope that the New Zealand players can put up a bit of a fight against these top fellas that are coming over from the States and all over the world to participate in that tournament. So good luck to them. We've got juniors, we've got women, we've got men's, all representing New Zealand. So yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm actually quite excited about it. It will be quite the watch. So on to some CNZ type stuff, I suppose, because although we've been viewed as quite involved with the international rules, with the red and yellow stuff, Super League and whatnot, and doing our own things, we are not opposed to the CNZ rules. In fact, we participate in them quite a bit, don't we? So a few weeks back was the Ian McGuinness Memorial Tournament, and we were privileged to be asked to come and do the streaming for that.
Yeah, it's actually really cool.
I felt quite honoured, actually. It's a massive tournament, and the names in that tournament, the calibre of which is involved, is just...
So you looked at all the sections, and it was like, oh, this is going to be hard, man.
There were tough ones. There were usually a good, clear-cut 3 good players, 4 good players in every single section. There was not an easy section.
Yeah, I'm not just saying that because we made it through the section, but...
Not at all. No.
Such hard players in that.
That was determined before play even started. It's just awesome. Obviously, Auckland being the biggest city in New Zealand helps with the number side of things, but that Manurewa club just smashed it. I think it ran beautifully. Yep, absolutely. It was really good. So that was great. Healy White won that, by the way, against Hassan Abella?
Yeah.
Something like that. And that was a great final to watch too.
Yeah, once again, it's on one of the YouTubes that we run as well. So
correct, on our YouTube page, Q Sports Aotearoa. So we've got the Nationals coming up at the same club again, Manurewa.
Yep.
That will be really cool. I just see over the last few days they've released the shirt for the Nationals.
Oh, it's a really good design.
Really cool. I've already ordered one. I thought it was nice.
10XL. I didn't think they made it that big.
It's not the point. I was trying to drive home here, Lucas, but thank you for that.
Oh, that's right. I got the same size.
Yeah. So, and just a little quick cheeky shout out to what was DG Sports and is now they've rebranded themselves as the brand makers that do those full supplementation type designs. Yeah, Danny Ward is involved with that, and he's the go-to for so many of those shirts. And I don't know how they keep coming up with new ideas. Like, I've seen shirts, I'm like, oh, nothing's going to better that. And then next year, something betters it. Like, they just keep coming up with some really cool designs. So not a paid plug, by the way, but a really huge advocate for the sport is Danny Ward. And I think
he's one of the refs as well.
He is a ref, correct, and a player, a good one at that. So the fact that he's been so involved with those shirts over the years, I think he's a really good supporter. So if anyone needs shirts made up, by all means, reach out to the brand makers. They are definitely worth looking into.
Yeah. Once again, not a promotion, not a paid promotion or anything, just genuinely good for the sport. Well, the sport, right?
I only mention it because I literally saw Danny today and said, were you guys the ones involved with those shirts? And he said yes. I was like, they are awesome. So, yeah, very cool. So, Nationals coming up. What are the dates? 1st or 2nd of October?
It's a week
or
after the first week.
6th of October, something like that. Starting with the pairs for anyone unfamiliar, and then moving on to the singles.
I think it's the 8th of October to the 12th, or 7th of October to the 12th, something like that.
That sounds right. So, again, we are very privileged to have been approached about doing the live streaming for that event. So that's going to be a very long week for Lucas and I, isn't it?
Yep.
I
won't be playing the pairs, but I'll be trying to play in the singles tournament. I'm just not a pairs player myself, though.
No, and the fact that you said trying to play in the singles sort of lets everyone know where you're at. So, yeah, it's good. No expectations on yourself.
Well, sometimes I can hold a cue straight.
Oh, gee, well, you're doing all right. I'd really struggle with that. Straight up and down, yes, but not at the table. So that's going to be a very cool tournament to watch. Lots of live streaming action. We're only going to have the 2 tables going, or we're going to expand on that, do you think?
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. It's all about resources at the end of the day.
At least 2 tables anyway, let's put it that way, with our overhead shot and side shot on one table with commentary, and another one at least streaming to our YouTube. I'm assuming that's probably how it's going to work. So that's going to be a good one. It'll be interesting to see the numbers on that, because when I walked away from the sport. When I say walked away from the sport, 20-something years ago, or 20-ish years ago, due to a back injury, and I just purely couldn't play anymore. I kept my finger on the pulse as much as I could in way of watching what was happening, especially with the numbers at tournaments. And for some reason, definitely not trying to suggest this because I'd exited the sport, but for some reason, the numbers seemed to dwindle over the years, and they went down and down and down. And the Nationals, from memory, they were always up around that sort of 280-ish mark, maybe 300-ish mark, and they started dipping. And I think over recent years have started to climb back up again, which is great for the trajectory of the sport as a whole. So it will be interesting to see how many entrants they get, also being hosted in the biggest city. Yep. So in theory, you would hope that this is probably one of the biggest nationals in recent years.
Yep.
I
mean, that kind of, you talking about that being away from the sport for that amount of time and it dwindling, and we were just talking about the live streaming as well, and we're going to make the connection here that, do you think that the live streaming would have helped in way of promoting it a little bit, or keeping you interested a bit more and keeping up to date with what's going on with that sort of stuff?
Well, it would have been great, but that was before the time of Facebook and stuff, right? So that's crystal ball material. But yes, if I'd had access to keeping my finger on the pulse more accurately, I certainly would have. It wouldn't have changed my mind in way of getting me back to the sport, because from a physicality point of view, I purely couldn't. I could barely walk throughout that ordeal, dealing with major back pain for 5 to 6 years. So it wasn't an option. But I would have liked to have watched it, certainly, and no doubt would have chimed in with some really useful comments. So yeah, I think it's easy to overlook how spoilt we are in this day and age in way of accessibility to everything, really, isn't it? Information in general.
I like to think I'm a younger player. I'm only 27 and I've only been in the sport for maybe 6-ish years or so, something like that. And I've always had technology around me within the sport, so I'm a bit spoiled for that sort of stuff. And even learning the game, you can learn so much from YouTube. And
well, you're the same age as Healy White. Yeah. So
and he's just so much better than me because he started way earlier than me.
That's not what I was trying to say. I was just going to say, are you pretty well accomplished as same realms as Healy?
Oh, mate, absolutely. I've got so many. Oh, wait, no, I don't have any titles.
Oh, you've got lots of titles. It's funny with Healy, actually, because I do know Healy personally, as you do. And some people might be listening that don't know who Healy White is. I suggest you go and look him up, because you'll find plenty of YouTube videos on him. I forget he's so young, and I look at him as a veteran. He's only 27 or ish. Excuse me, I'm getting that wrong. Healy might be 28 now, but yeah, he's a veteran. He came up through the junior ranks and then into the opens and bits and pieces, and God, he's got some titles for a 27-year-old. He's done very, very well.
Oh, and he just took the Ian McInnes title he's been absolutely wanting for years and years now, isn't it?
Yeah. So now him and Mia have both got their name on the trophy. That's actually really cool. I can't think of a scenario where that may be equaled in the future, where a partnership or a relationship gets both of their names on that trophy. That's really massive. So anyway, you chose a good peers partner there, Healy. So plenty more titles to come. And I really don't think we've seen the best of either Mia or Healy either. They're still getting better.
Yeah, especially in the way of, with the opportunities for going overseas with the Super League and stuff. They've both motivated in that sort of sense, right?
Totally. Yep. There's also been talk of Mia potentially representing the men's or open class at the World Champs in future years, but apparently that is not possible. It's either I had to explain that it was So a female player could choose if they went in the Open or the women's, but they couldn't play in both. But apparently that's not the case. It's the women have to play in the women's, and the Open is an Open men's.
That's really weird. I thought it would have been just women's and an Open general.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the motivation behind those sort of things are, but yeah, an interesting concept. So anyway, moving on to the New Zealand Nationals, or continuing with. That will be a really interesting tournament. There's going to be obviously some massive names at that one. It will be really interesting to see what starts happening at the business end, both in the pairs and the singles, actually. There'll be some interesting pairings. I've got a junior pairing with me, not saying that we're going to go and win it or anything, but it'll be interesting to see how Sean Biggs and I gel.
Oh, you got Sean Biggs, eh?
Yep, and I offered it to Sean and Jack to see if either of them were keen, and Sean jumped at it, which I'm really wrapped with because, gee, he is certainly sharp and able to destroy.
So much better than you, Brodie. So.
That is a very small child to carry my huge weight, but he said he's keen, so that's all I needed. Yeah, he will be carrying me through. I'm just going to try the safety side of it and set him up so he can come and pot them all because...
he pots them all the time. That's crazy.
All the time, yeah. So I'm really trying to promote some crazy clearances from him too. Just go for it. Don't worry about the rules. Don't worry about getting tied up too much. Just do your thing because it's worked literally at the World Champs, right? So if it's good enough there, it's good enough here.
He's got titles sorted out. Do you, Brodie?
No titles. Definitely not. Other than Mr. That's my only title.
It's even a bit shaky, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Sometimes. But anyway, not going to get into that. Not that kind of podcast. So that's going to be one to keep your eyes on, guys. Especially if you can't make it, there will be plenty of live stream coverage. So that's going to be great watching. So this would probably be a good point to start wrapping things up, Lucas, and talk about what we hope this podcast turns into and our hopes, dreams and desires. The podcast from my perspective is just about getting New Zealand pool talked about, encouraging comments and feedback, not particularly on how we're doing.
We don't need to know how bad we are at pool.
But some of the burning issues within the sport, contentious topics and what have you, good feedback, bad feedback, not looking to get too deep into politics, but I think there's a lot of conversations that happen at pool tournaments. I think it's worthy of sharing some of those views and having some people chime in, and whether that be in our comment section on Facebook or whatever.
The huge issue is having a small white versus a big white in the international rules. That's a good example of one.
That's a massive talking point for so many people. Yep, absolutely. So we're just hoping to, more than anything else, encourage some chat, encourage some topics being talked about, and some feedback to come from those topics. Looking at doing some live or recorded live, but pre-recorded interviews while we're at the Nationals in Aotearoa.
I mean, it doesn't have to be at a specific tournament or anything. It can be at any tournament, really. But
that's right. If we're there and someone wants to sit down and have a chat with us for 20 minutes and we record it, then fantastic. I'm all for it. Getting these conversations happening and encouraging others to chime in with their perspectives and opinions. I mean, I know it's not going to all be positive.
I mean, this first episode of ours is trying to be a bit more positive and upbeat rather than
we're not out
negatives.
Yep, absolutely not out to try and destroy or poo-poo anyone else's way of doing things or mentality. But I think there's so many things that happen within the sport that people want to chat about. So we're just there to encourage it. A bit of a pool hall confessional type scenario, right? We'll set up a confessional booth come on in, tell us your deepest, darkest secrets, and if you agree, we can put it out to air. You can even do it anonymously. It seems to be a bit of a popular trend at the moment, right?
Well, should we get the voice changer and get Darth Vader on?
We can certainly, yes, we can certainly do that. So that's what we're trying to do: encourage chat and hopefully learn from it, and look at maybe things that haven't worked out so well from a player's perspective in the past, and with our trying to promote certain bits and pieces within Q Sports, make sure we don't fall into the same holes that others have fallen into in the past, and try and learn from other people's mistakes. We're looking at having some guest commentary, celebrities, I suppose you might say, of the sport, that is. Come and join us throughout the CNZ Nationals. And we're looking also at potentially helping support a couple of tournaments coming up. I'm not sure if it will be achieved by the end of this year because the calendar is pretty full. But looking at maybe doing a bit of a themed tournament where there could be some best dressed type scenarios.
Yeah, but more of a fun tournament rather than come and play for the money and then leave.
Yep, put a bit of an emphasis on the community spirit side of it, because I know myself, there's a lot of people that I see only at pool tournaments, who's a company I do enjoy, and it's nice to catch up with them at tournaments, but it's all a little bit serious at times.
Yep.
So put more emphasis on the having a good time side of it, and the pool being a byproduct, as opposed to the pool being the only reason we're there, and catching up afterwards for 20 minutes before we've got to do a bit of a drive home. So trying to promote the party side of it as well, that we are friends on and off the table.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually, yeah.
Yep. So hopefully some tournaments coming up. And I think that's about it. This is our very first attempt at this podcast gig. I don't expect a Spotify deal been offered to
$100
us.
million later, yeah.
Well, you just never know, do you? But no, highly unlikely. Also, I just want to touch on the topic of Alex Stones and the great appreciation I have for what he did start with the Inside New Zealand Pool podcast. This is not looking to muscle him out or take over by any means, but there has been a noted absence of his presence, and I understand he does have more important things to focus on. So if anything, we're just filling a little bit of a void until his return. And I hope to work with Alex at some stage and maybe have him on our podcast, or he has us on his, have a bit of a chat. He's got his finger on the pulse, especially in Canterbury, as to the pool scene and where things are going or where they've come from. Be really interesting to sit down and have a chat with him at some stage.
He's definitely still around in the pool scene. He gave me a bit of a hand with the streaming setup on Super League Nationals, so that was good of him to. He doesn't have to do that sort of stuff, but it's definitely appreciated when that sort of handout comes.
Yeah, I'd love to start seeing more of this promotion of cohesion between people that look to be doing the exact same thing within the sport, and rather you're over there doing your thing and I'm over here doing my very similar thing, you're by default my enemy. That should be embraced, those sort of relationships, right?
Yep.
You work with us, we work with you, and let's create something bigger and better. That's kind of what I'd like to see happen anyway. Whether it's achievable or not is another thing. It's yet to be proven.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is hoping.
Yeah, so also this, I just want to quickly say, this podcast may be a bit short, maybe this one, maybe a bit long, I don't know. There's no set time for this either, so it could be way longer in the future, maybe even like 3 hours or something crazy, Joe Rogan podcast sort of deal, but probably not. I'm sure everyone's got stuff to do.
Yeah, well, I think this, I've not heard of this Joe Rogan you speak of, but there's certainly merit in certainly merit in the long form conversation, getting people's perspective and not just a soundbite to pass on and promote, like actually have a bit of a deep and meaningful, and also promote people chiming in, whether it be after the fact or not.
These deep and meaningfuls don't just have to be between me and you. late at night on the pool table. Oh yeah, pool table.
It would be nice to introduce some outside influence, that's for sure, Lucas. So, on that note, we shall go and have a game of pool and talk about all sorts of things that are probably not privy to podcasting environments, and hopefully have some cool guests in the next one and see how things go. So, over and out from BnL, or Big and Large Promotions.
Yep. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, see you next time.